Spend management software and procurement software sounds like they do the same thing, but reality is one controls the spending before the money leaves the door, and second, reports on spending once the money is already gone. Now, I've been in procurement space for more than 20 years, and I've seen this many times where companies implement spend management software with the intent to control their purchasing, but they still land up with surprise invoices. So in this video, I'm going to cover the main differences between a spend management software and a procurement software, which one is right for your organization, so that you can pick the right solution the first time and control spending for good and avoid any surprise invoices going forward. Let's dig into it. So the first category we will cover is spend management software, because that's what most of the companies start with. A spend management software is designed around two things, right? Cards and expenses. So having an ability for your finance team to issue either physical cards or virtual cards to employees, having an employee to kind of go in and submit the receipts for those expenses, so that now the finance team has visibility in terms of where the money is going. So think about this as, this is a good process for categories like travel, for software subscription, for entertainment, meals, or any other small purchase that might be happening within your organization that does not need to go through a full procurement process. And for that kind of spend, you can actually hand over a card to someone, put the dollar limit on top of it so that it can't go over, and that gives you spend control. So that's what spend management software is designed to do, is issue a card, control the spending. But the main problem is you're still waiting for employees to submit the receipts before you know where to code it. But it does give finance the ability to see all the live expenses, because you have one place where you can track pretty much where your money is going. Now, companies like Ramp, Brex, Airbase, Expensify falls into this category. The spend management software is generally not designed to handle things like physical purchases of products, where you need to track your purchasing process, where you need to have a purchase order, where you need to have a vendor to acknowledge the purchase order so that you can track where the product is actually when it's going to arrive. It is not designed to do three-way match of invoicing, where invoices can be matched to receipts, purchase orders, and so on. So if you are looking for I would say, easy tool to kind of control the basic expenses, you're just starting up, you need a basic spend management process in place, spend management software is the right way to go. Now, that covers all the spending that's happening at the time or after receiving it. There's a different set of category, which is procurement software, that we're going to cover now. Now, a procurement software is designed to have a purchase request process before the money leaves the door. And the idea here is that an employee goes in and put in a request for what they need to purchase. They assign the right coding so that when the invoice or when the finance team is looking at the expense, they can easily identify where it needs to be coded, and it needs to be reviewed and approved before you buy. So the main difference is not in the previous example which I gave about spend management software. You have a card which somebody can swipe, and then if you wanted to kind of control that they should not have spent the money on this, there is very limited chance for you to do that. They can ask for forgiveness, which is what mostly happens. So with this process, they are putting in a request, and a manager can review and say approve or reject, and say should we or should we not make this purchase. And once the purchase request is approved, the rest of the process runs in the whole chain, right? So a requisition gets converted to a purchase order is sent to the vendor then acknowledge the purchase order, provides estimated shipping dates, and once the product is received, a warehouse team or somebody goes in and create a receipt confirming that the product is received. And when the invoice comes in, it automatically matches the invoice with the purchase order and receipt, so that your team or finance team is not spending time trying to figure out what is this for and where it needs to go from a coding standpoint. Now, procurement softwares are also designed for the type of purchase that the card solutions don't handle very well. So again, physical goods or services where you have to have a formal procurement process or a purchase order process, because the vendors are either demanding it, or you are in a highly regulated industry where you need to meet certain compliance needs when it comes to how you work with your vendors and your approved set of vendors and things like that. So typically what you see is in a procurement software, you are actually linking your purchasing process with the vendor catalogs. Either the vendor is managing the pricing on a posted catalog, or or it's a vendor punch out where, like vendors like Amazon, Staples, and so on, they all connected within the system. So you can easily navigate through the whole process. What that means for your employees is simplicity and ease of use. They already know how to use Amazon and Staples. You don't need to train them on that, but you also have control. They go to the site, pick what they want to buy, and now it's in their cart automatically. And then it can go through review and approval process. And that is why we designed ProcureDesk. ProcureDesk is a procurement software that is designed to handle this entire end-to-end process. It has more than 200 catalogs or vendor punch-outs that are built in for your employees to easily shop. So employees get easy to use process, which means that drives adoption, right? People use the system rather than trying to avoid the system. It is designed to manage the rest of the process from requisition, purchase order, receipts, invoices, AP automation, all that in one single system. And finally, it is designed to integrate this data back to your accounting system. Whether you're using QuickBooks, Xero, Business Central, Sage Intacct, NetSuite, you name it, it connects with all these different systems for easy migration of the data. So your team is not spending time entering data into multiple systems. Now, what I just described, if that sounds like the control that your company needs, click on the link below to schedule time with one of our product specialists, and we'll kind of walk you through how this end-to-end process works. All right, so now we want to look at what actually changes for your finance team between whether you have a spend management software and procurement software. So there are three areas we want to talk about. One is cash flow forecast. Second is accruals management. And third is month-end close process. Now, when it comes to cash forecast, if you're using a spend management software, you have a view on where people are spending the money, but you don't have a view of how much money we're going to spend in the next 3 to 6 months, right? Because you don't have a system that captures the commitment that you have already made to the vendor. So when you're swiping a card, yeah, you know you spend the money, but then you're just kind of reacting to it. Most companies in this, when they have most finance team, when they're dealing with a spend management software, they are just forecasting based on the averages, right? So here's how much we average spend on a month-to-month basis. This is where we will land up. And guess what? There is always more spending than you anticipated because somebody decided to spend more money on certain things. And it's not waste of money. It's just like what the business needs. Now, when you think about a procurement software, the finance can forecast the cash because now it captures the commitment. So if you're going to buy something which is going to be delivered in 6 months, you already have a purchase order for that in the system. You can run a report that tells you and say, hey, show me all my commitments and what is the anticipated date by which we are going to get the product or the service would be delivered. You can use that to build your forecast. So you have a better forecast, but overall it gives you the ability to, of course, be confident in your forecast, but plan cash better. Especially if you're a growing company and you're going through rounds of funding, this is exactly what you need, the ability to see committed spend and forecast based on that. Number two is accruals. So in a spend management world, right, you are reaching out to different stakeholders to see what accruals you need to build. So in case if you have spent the money or you have received the product, but the vendor is not paid yet, this is a continuous battle for the finance teams to go back and forth with different stakeholders to figure out what we should accrue. Now, in a procurement software world, you already have commitments, which are your purchase orders in the system. You can see what has been received but not invoiced, or invoiced but not received. These are just simple reports that you can run. So rather than your team spending a lot of time trying to figure out what we need to accrue for this month, you can actually run reports within few clicks and minutes. You know exactly what number you need to accrue for. It's as simple as that. So that's I would say the difference between spend management and procurement software is your accrual process is already done for you. You're not spending time building accruals. And finally, the month-end close process. Now, when you have all your committed spend, you can build better forecasts. You have all your reports in the system. You can run accruals in minutes. What that means is month-end close process is just a formality to make sure everything is in the right place because everything is in one system. You're not chasing for invoices. You're not chasing for accrual reports and so on. And what that means is companies can now close books faster. In our experience, we work with many companies where the close before ProcureDesk or system like that is 7 to 10 days. And after implementing automated matching, having the ability for running accrual reports, they get their month-end close cycle to 3 to 4 days. And eventually what that means is finance team can spend more time analyzing the behavior change in like month to month, like why the expenses went up or down versus just struggling to close books on time. So now it comes down to which one your company needs. And honestly, I'll give you kind of a checklist of questions that you can run through and figure out which solution kind of makes sense. So first of all is, what are you actually buying? So for example, if you're a software company, you're spending more money on expenses, meals, travel, software subscription, and so on, right? You're not buying like a lot of physical goods for which you need to track deliveries and things like that. A spend management software is a better bet for those kind of scenarios. However, if you are buying a lot of materials, let's say you are a logistics company, you run a warehouse, or you're a manufacturing company and you're buying MRO supplies and so on, and you need to make sure you have full commitment visibility and so on, you need a procurement software, right? So that's kind of the main difference on what are you buying, and that kind of pretty much answers one versus the other approach. The next thing to figure out is how many vendors you're dealing with. The reason this is important is if you have fewer vendors, it's easy to track in a spend management software. But if you have large set of vendors, you need to now worry about compliance, you need to worry about certificate of insurance, you need to worry about W-9s, all needs to be in one single place for you to kind of manage your vendors effectively. So if you have smaller or a shorter list of vendors, go with spend management. Large vendors, go with procurement software. Now, the next two questions also helps you further crystallize what kind of system do you really need. So the third question is, do you have multiple entities across which you're managing spend? If you have multiple entities, it comes with its own set of complexities, inter-entity transfers, or making sure each entity has a different set of rules from how we book the kind of accruals, or for how we track commitments and things like that. So a procurement software is designed generally for handling multiple locations, right? So you can have all the locations in one single place, and you can easily see all the spending across the location in one single dashboard, or across different business units for that matter. And finally, what's the biggest pain point for you? Are you struggling with a lot of receipts? Like, you have credit card expenses and you just need a central place to track it, or you need controls in a way that, hey, somebody goes to Vegas on a trip and they don't land up spending $10,000 on a credit card. Spend management software can give you that, right? You can issue a card and you can limit it to 5,000. They will never go above that, right? Or if they go, they have to, put money out of their own pocket. So those are kind of use cases. But if you're receiving vendor invoices for which you haven't planned, right, from a cash flow standpoint, these are surprise invoices, then a procurement software is a better bet. So again, depends upon what are you trying to solve for. One versus the other works the same way, right? Now, the honest answer is, in my experience, you probably need both. You of course have T&E expenses and one-off expenses where you need to issue virtual cards and employee cards and so on. And on the other hand, you also need a procurement software, right, for managing the end-to-end procurement process, which is typically the case for companies like manufacturing, logistics, construction. These are companies which are have both of these processes in that. And that's why we built ProcureDesk, because it actually handles both. ProcureDesk handles the conventional requisition to purchase order process, which means it can handle requisitions, purchase orders, receipts, order acknowledgement, invoice matching, and bill payment. And it also have virtual cards and physical cards that you can issue to your employees. So you can handle both one-offs as well as the standard what you need to purchase from a PO standpoint. The main difference is we focus more on making sure all commitments are captured no matter how you pay the vendor. So employees still put in the request for what they need to buy. It still gets reviewed and approved by the right person. It still gets reviewed and mapped against the budget. And then you can choose how you're going to pay the vendor. So if Sally needs to go to Walmart to buy office supplies or, party supplies, for example, you probably can issue a virtual card for that. You're not going to, have an invoice. Or if you have a physical card, you can use a physical card. No matter how the spending is happening, you have a purchase request. That's kind of the core thesis of ProcureDesk. So if this video made you realize that your finance team is always seeing the spending after it happens, click on the link below to see how a procurement software can help you. So on this demo, our team will walk you through how you can have a centralized direct to bill pay process in one system, which encapsulates everything, whether you're spending money on T&E, or whether you need virtual cards, whether you need physical cards, or whether you have vendors who demand purchase orders and send you invoices, or if your team is drowning in invoice matching, then how you automate the entire process. Again, click on the link below to schedule some time with our product specialist. And if you want to know what key features you should look for in a procurement tool, check this video.